And a very good morning to all of you. This is Tudose, Tianu, and we're here with two very special guests on this beautiful Saturday morning in Bucharest, Romania at Coffee and Stories. Today I have with me Rupp, Deputy Chief of Mission from the US Embassy, and Sorin Mîndruțescu, CEO of Oracle Romania. And before I introduce them properly and I let them talk about their weekend in Romania. To all of you, this is Tudose. Yes. I want to remind all of you that Coffee and Stories is the place where foreigners living in Romania, repatriates like myself, and the Romanians from the diaspora hear other kinds of conversations and listen to different types of stories, the positive things that are happening in Romania, the good stories, the good examples, because we really need a shift in perspective. And there are so many people in this country doing meaningful things that we're doing the best that we can to share their stories. So welcome again and a very good morning to you. I want to ask both of you, if you're staying in Bucharest this weekend, what will you do? Because we're going to have good weather. What do you usually do in the weekends in Bucharest? Abby?
Well, I'm happy that it looks like spring is on the way, although I do remember around this time last year we had 2 snowstorms, so I'm a little suspicious, but I'm glad that so far spring is holding up. Usually for us, Saturdays are full of activity. I have 3 children and they have gymnastics and tennis, and so we spend a lot of time doing that. And then Sundays we go to the park or we play outside and ride our bicycles. I usually make pancakes.
That sounds really good.
Tomorrow is St. Patrick's Day, so there'll probably be green pancakes.
Oh, yeah. Are they going to wear some St. Patty's outfits or something?
I'm sure we'll find some green somewhere. So,
is there anything in Bucharest for St. Patty's or no?
Tonight, I know that there's some Irish dancing at, I don't remember where, but I remember seeing the advertisement. So our counterparts at the Irish Embassy also make sure they sponsor some good activities.
Yeah, we've been to some wonderful St. Patrick's Day parades in New York City, and they're beautiful.
Yeah.
They used to be in Bucharest as well.
Yeah,
is it going
the
to be
parades?
this year?
I don't know. I haven't heard of a parade.
Yes, in the previous years they used to have the green parades.
Huh.
That's really
well,
great.
I would be surprised
if
they would not have one this year.
Huh.
Yeah.
Well, that would be fun.
We should ask them.
Yes, we should track it down.
So, Sorin, how many movies are you watching this weekend?
Well, I don't think that will be too many movies because, I'm going to be here in the morning, and thank you for having me here. On the other side, in the afternoon, I'm having some friends coming to a dinner that is going to be prepared by my daughter, a boyfriend. He is really a great chef, and he's going to prepare the meal for them. And tomorrow, fortunately or unfortunately, speaking about spring, I'm going to fly to the Emirates. So I'm going to fly to good weather, definitely, but fortunately, it's going to be for business.
Okay, well, for how long?
It's going to be 1 week.
Okay. So you have been here in Romania for almost 2 years. You came here in the summer of 2017. And you speak Romanian a little, a lot?
I do. Somewhere between a little and a lot, I would
Okay.
say. Not fluent, but I can understand most things, and it's not elegant, but I can usually say what I want to say. Okay. So this is my second time working in this neighborhood. The first time I visited Bucharest was in 1999, when I was assigned to our U.S. Embassy in Chișinău. And I came here from Chișinău for some meetings. And so I have a memory of what it was like then, and it was so neat to come back and see what it's like now and how much the city has really changed.
You know what? It's becoming a cliche in all of my conversations to ask of somebody who's not from Romania if they love Romania or Bucharest, and why do they love it? Because everybody loves it so much. And coming back after a decade in the United States, the conversations there around Romania are not always positive, and I don't want to, I don't want to say anything else, but when you ask people who were born here but now are living in a different country, and they've been living there for a long time, why they love Romania, they can think of too many good things to say. Maybe it's their childhood, the smell of their grandmother's cozonaci or something like that.
Right.
But what made you like Bucharest and like Romania? And I assume, you're here after several other posts, and I know that you love it here. Why do you love it here?
Yeah. Well, for me, Bucharest is a great balance of a whole bunch of different things in terms of what we do in our spare time. It's a city that has a lot of parks. There's a lot of wonderful cultural opportunities. There are great restaurants. The cost of living is reasonable again in most cases. So the schools are very good. So it's a good place to live and a good place to be here with the family. And then for me on the professional side, the work is very interesting. Our embassy is very active in a whole bunch of different areas, and in my position, I get to do a little bit of everything. And so for me, it's a great balance.
How does it compare what you do now in Romania to what you were doing in Moldova? And let's say you had a very interesting post in Ghana.
I did, yeah.
What were you doing there?
So in Moldova, it was my first assignment with the State Department, and I was the consular officer. So I was responsible for the visa process and also assisting American citizens who were there. And then I also worked on the commercial relationships, so companies who wanted to invest in Moldova. And then I also did some law enforcement training. So I brought people from the DEA and what is now Homeland Security and the Department of Treasury to train their Moldovan counterparts. So it was really interesting to do all of those different things. And in Ghana, Ghana also has a very special place in my heart because I got married in Ghana. So there I spent a year doing just the consular work and then a year doing just the political work. And that was the year that Ghana had presidential elections in 2000. So it was a really interesting time to be there as well.
And in Romania?
So in Romania, one way to describe what I do is that the ambassador is the CEO and I am the COO. So the ambassador sets our goals and priorities, and he's generally the public face of our mission. He is the president's representative in the country, and I make the ship run. So I am the liaison between him and the rest of our team, and I like to think of myself as enabling everyone else to do their jobs.
Do you or have you been involved in any way with organizations that are trying to empower women, either on the foreign affairs side or on the entrepreneurial side?
I have, and I've also worked with some other some groups who work with empowering girls, because I think that's a challenge in many countries, certainly in the U.S. as well as in Romania, is giving girls the not just the opportunities, but also helping them understand that they have the same possibilities as their other classmates. And so I have, and I think this is a country where women have great opportunities. It's not a country where I feel that I'm treated differently because I'm female, and there are a lot of female leaders, including at this point, also the Prime Minister. So that's setting an example.
That's absolutely true.
Yeah.
Sorin, pretty much everybody knows you here, and they know you because you're a very open person. You're very generous. You're a mentor. You have been building up business, real business, successful business in Romania for so long. But putting aside your wonderful work at Oracle, you are a very outspoken person about the role of culture in the education of children. And I have personally seen you trying to inspire children, having them love the Romanian culture and what it means to have a conversation that is open and it is about our values. What drove you to that? Or have you always had such a love for culture and movies and conversations?
Yeah, always. I mean, first and foremost, I have to tell you that I failed in business, in charity, and all the other things that I'm doing in my life from my initial planning career of an actor. So I'm completely failure. My entire life failed.
Because your goal was
because my goal
actor.
was to. But you might remember, we might not know, but during the communist times, in order to become an actor and to go to the university, the only university, well, basically used to be one in Bucharest, in Cluj, in maybe Iași, Târgu Mureș for sure. There were, I don't know, 2-3 places per year, in the universities in order to become an actor. So the competition for those places was
pretty tough.
I'm a failed actor. So I always. Secondly, I always had a passion for history, for politics, for storytelling, and so on. And when they are asking me about my movie festival and they are asking me what are the movies that I remember from my childhood, I don't know. I have so many, and one of them that I'm always very proudly mentioning is the Star Wars, but the initial ones, which, by the way, George Lucas managed to confuse me completely with changing the sequence of the events.
So those are 4, 5, and 6.
Exactly, which I'm always having challenge to remember because So I'm coming from that area, So this is about the culture. I was playing in the high school. I was playing theater I was in the Shakespeare and some other small things when I was in the high school in my native city, which is Pitești, on the local municipal theater there. So now, when it comes to the kids, the children, then I think that this is one of the easiest. It's interesting, the balance between the complexity of doing something for the kids and the impact. It's one of the best that you can imagine. I mean, you can not maybe change the life of a kid, but you can definitely influence quite dramatically the life of a kid very easily. So when you are putting the balance in the balance, the effort and the values and the things that you can do and what this requires versus the impact, it's one of the fastest, shortest way from action to result. And this is why I always, plus the sentimental involvement. I mean, who is not emotional when it comes to a child need, whatever kind of need is that
absolutely.
one. It's either health need, cultural need, material need, doesn't matter. Who on earth is not touched by that thing? So the puzzle of the things that I've told you so far, it's culture, it's values, it's efficiency, it's the emotions involved in this, lead me to the point of addressing the kids' needs. By the way, on the way here, I just on the call because I have to admit that I was wrongly drove to another place, and after in the last minute coming here to the right location for this interview. And I was speaking with Mia on the way here in order to, on the 6th of April, to take Mia's children to Brașov, to an opera house, in order to have a show there.
I have to make a little note here for everybody watching who don't know about Mia. Sorin belongs to a group of very generous people who are helping a wonderful woman. Her name is Mia, and she's been raising over 170 kids during the past 20 years. 20 plus years in an orphanage in Bucharest. And the work that she has done is, there's no real word that I can use for the generosity, the altruism that she and her late husband have shown to these children. And Sorin is one of the supporters of the children. And Sorin, you organize these movie watching days for them, where you play a movie for them and then you have conversations with them.
This is one of the things that I'm doing with them, other than helping them with their supplies and so on and so forth. The point is that the kids, everybody in Romania, going back a little bit to your question to Abby about what do you like in Romania, everybody speaks in Romania about the role of the models. And I'm not thinking about myself being a model for the kids. I'm far from being a model. What I'm saying is that helping them to understand the world that they are living in, how the history was, why the values during the communist times, so for instance, have been so much perverted, and how you should choose between right and wrong, between good and evil. this is something that you can do in many ways. And due to what I've said earlier, I think that movie is one of the most simple, but on the other side, a very powerful tool in order to try to show them visually what you are trying to express, especially when the children are, small children, maybe they don't understand exactly the whole things that you have. And when they are seeing it on the screen, it's much easier to send a message.
Yeah.
And, this is the round circle of what I'm doing around the movie. It's either is Mia, either is Rizhov, either other things. Because you can send a message and also educate them in the same time.
Yeah.
The U.S. Embassy has run this project with life, showing how life was during the communist times in Romania. And what's the name of the project? The apartment?
Well, the museum is called the 80s Apartment.
The 80s Apartment.
And so we gave an initial grant to get it started, and it's organized by our three former exchange program alumni. And so it's a really nice circle that they went on a trip to the U.S., and as part of that experience, they thought of another way to educate Romania, especially youth, about what it was like during the communist times.
Why is this important, Sorin? Why is it so important for young people to understand? Because obviously they can't remember and they feel far removed from that reality. It's not what they're now experiencing. They weren't born in those times. And from my perspective, I think the real danger is that they would somehow fall prey to some attempt to manipulate them towards the values
kind
of those
nostalgia.
times. Yes, because they don't know what it was, they wouldn't recognize it. So how can we help them understand how it was?
Well, I'm going to start with the end of your question by being involved. It's very simple. Why we have to do and how? It's exactly because what you've just said. They didn't live in those times. And they have to know how, because we are seeing these days an interesting, and we are not going to speak about politics here, and we are not going to speak about geopolitics here, but we are seeing more and more the traditional Western democratic values under question mark. We are seeing, I would say, a resurrection of the socialist ideas. We are seeing, and this is something that, of course, that the people, they have the whole freedom in the world in order to choose an ideology or another. But on the other side, I think that the ones that we think that we know what was all about communism, we have to tell them, because they didn't. They didn't pass through that experience. And I'm always trying to explain them that, as Churchill, I think, was saying, that the capital is the free market economy or the free market society. It's a completely imperfect one. But the human society couldn't invent yet a better one. So it's as simple as that. And if you are going back to a different social system, you meaning the society is reevaluating the social system that we pass through. I'm not saying that might not be a viable choice but you have to know how it was in that one, because we passed through that experience. It's not something that it's a lab test and let's see what is going to get out of it. The half of the world was under that political, ideological, economical frame. We in Romania, we lived in that one.
Yeah.
So it's your duty, I would say, at the end of the day, to let them know how really were those times. As simple as that.
Romanian culture was a way for Romanians to fight off communism during the communist time. And even the fact that conversations started to take place around coffee that wasn't coffee, and this is one of the things I like to say about my own show, Coffee and Stories, because I didn't just name it Coffee and Stories because I love coffee, which I do. I named it because in Romania, around the mid-'80s, there was no more coffee, real coffee. It was very expensive. It was like $6,000 per, I don't know.
I recommend you in this respect a book that I think is quite well known. Amintirile unei confesiunilor unui cafegiu, which was written by one of the best well-known coffee maker in those times, that it's a true history of the communist communist retail system, if I can say so, and all the shortages and everything that the people were looking after on the shops, and they couldn't find out how was the illegal trade, and so I warmly recommend to all of you. By the way, the guy is still living. He's still alive. I think he's in the 80s, and he's having a small coffee shop. By the way, he's still having.
Where?
I'm suggesting you to have an interview with him.
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Florescu. He is nearby Piazza Rossetti.
Right by
but
my
you have to
office.
be prepared back, because if it is somebody that speaks more about those lines than me, is Mr. Florescu. So you have to take a lot of time.
Okay.
So I
I'd love
can
to do
arrange a
that.
meeting
Yes.
with him. He is an encyclopedia.
Wow,
Absolutely.
that'd be fascinating.
No, but just from the young people's perspective, they can find wonderful coffee around Bucharest, around all the big cities in Romania right now, and they go and they treat it like it's nothing. They ask for a cup of coffee and they sit down and have a conversation. Where 30 years ago, you couldn't do that. You had this coffee called Nechezol that wasn't real
We
coffee.
didn't have anything in there. They
Was
didn't
Okay.
have
Is it
food.
kind of the grain?
Exactly.
It was a combination between, what was
Right.
it, garbanzo beans, I think, soybeans, and some kind of coffee, I
Okay,
guess.
all right.
But it's the principle that people accepted having it. You accept having something else,
Which was
but
black,
the
yeah,
real
it was
thing,
a
yes.
fake coffee or
Yes,
something
fake coffee,
like that.
fake coffee.
But in this respect,
Fake
if
coffee, yes.
the people, and we were just speaking a minute ago, and I was suggesting to Abby to use in their projects with the kids a great movie that it's the short version, the shortest version to sort of shortest link towards understanding the Romanian communists. It's a movie, or there are so many movies in this respect, but this is one I think that the most illustrative. It's a movie that is made out of 6 or 7 episodes under Cristi Mungiu's project management, if I can say so, because each of them is having a director, and it is called Amintiri din Epoca de Aur. If you are going to see this, most probably you are going to understand at least half of the Romanian communism.
It's on my list now.
Yeah, okay.
So it's very important. A lot of the people who are going to be watching our recording don't live in Romania. A lot of Romanians from the diaspora. And they do remember how it was like, because mainly, I think it's why they left, if we're talking about people who are my age and older. But the younger ones who chose to leave Romania in the past decade, let's say, and more so, let's say, in the past 2-3 years, when we've seen a lot of the negative migration rising, they have other reasons. It's not that. It's not the past, okay? It's the present that they see. But coming back after a decade in the US, I see so many positive things around. There are educational events everywhere. There are groups of people, from entrepreneurs to people who are active in every possible industry, who are doing great things. I see partnerships between the private sector and the civil society. I will not name the biggest problem we have, because this is not a political show. But in between the reality of these partnerships, civil society and the private sector, and the strength of our young generation, who is involved in so many projects, organizations, they're willing to change things. Why do we still lose hope? Why is that such a huge negative migration, and when could we, or how can we try to stop it? Because to me, it's an issue of trust. People need to be able to see in their mind's eye a projected future that's positive. And I see it. There are so many people who see it. But why aren't the younger ones seeing it?
It's a good question.
I can hear the silence.
And
Yes.
we were talking before we started about what are the essential characteristics of people from different countries, and we were talking about how Americans, at their core, are optimists, and we very much believe that each person can change their own future, and so in that sense. That's often what it comes down to, is looking towards your own future and looking for not only what is around you, but what you can do to affect that. And there is a lot of potential in Romania, and I hope that we see that recognition continuing to grow.
Sorin, what do you see in the young generation?
Well, I'm going back to what Abby was saying about the Romanian characteristic. To a certain extent, I think that the dark side of our personality, or the people, it's playing a role in this because, as you very well pointed out, Dana, there are so many good things that are happening in Romania. And we've been together this week to an event that it's one of the closest to my heart, which is the Romanian business leaders. And you've seen there, it's not about the success in the businesses that those guys they had in the last decade or so. It's about their CSR type of projects, Merito, which is addressing the teachers, Super Teach. Entreprenoriști for the startups. So they're having zillions and zillions of and the atmosphere in that group of people there that I'm somehow part of, it's an incredible positive one. It's a can-do type of attitude, exactly the American way of thinking to a certain extent. So, and I'm not mentioning all the charity things that are happening in Romania. I'm seeing a tremendous growth in the involvement in the area of different kind of needs of the Romanian society, of the NGOs. So I think that the civil society and the good feeling that you can see it around the country, it's grew enormously in the last years, I would say. So from this perspective, I'm seeing a very vibrant society. We are not going to speak politics. We can't speak politics today in this show, and we shouldn't. But I think that this is the only area that, unfortunately, it's generating this negative sense in the society. But this is it, And by the way, we should stop with this subject eventually. We are seeing that the entire world is passing through a very challenging period of time. So we are part of the world. We are seeing what is happening in Europe. We are seeing the challenges that we are having in North America, in Latin America, within European Union, Brexit. So unfortunately, as somebody was saying, what is missing today from our lives is to be bored. We would love to be a little bit bored.
Yes, and
worldwide.
If you think you might be bored, everyone just has this little pocket computer they take out, and it entertains them.
Yeah. So somebody was saying that boring was underestimated in the past, and everybody would love to be a little bit bored these days.
Yeah, it's not a Romanian characteristic though. Romanians cannot, stand being bored. So they would obviously even create their own new problems just not to be bored. Let's talk a little bit about the film festival. This is a movement. It started from your love for movies.
And politics and history.
And politics and conversation.
Yeah, the conversations.
But now it's turned into a movement. People want to come. They are asking you to come, and they want to be a part of it, and they want to reach those young people and mentor them. So how did you come up with the idea?
Well, it's not an idea. It was not my idea. I was, as I keep telling to everybody, because I'm preaching. I'm a good salesperson. Yeah. So from this perspective, I'm having something to sell, which is, come guys to Rizhnov every July, beginning of August, and see what's going on there. So Dana, I started this adventure, which ended by being one of my, I'm so much involved into this that it's part of me now. 7 years ago, as a spectator, I've been there I ended up by showing up in Rizhnov absolutely by accident. I was holidaying around Rizhnov, and I ended up by going and seeing a concert, but also a very interesting documentary, also a very interesting so-called fictional movie, because it was very much about the event that we discussed in those days. In 2012, that specific evening they were treating in that what I understood eventually was called Historic Movie Festival. I even didn't know what's going on there. What is the title of the festival? I was knocking on a door, and I just stepped in. They were speaking about the terrorist attack against the Israeli delegation in 1972 Olympics in Munich.
That's right. That was when that movie came out, right? Is that the one that you saw?
We were basically, what they did, this is my first memory. They were having a documentary coming from the German television ZDF. They ended up during the night in the Saxon citadel of Rizhnov with Munich, Steven Spielberg. But in between was an incredible, was taking place something that was the moment of me, realizing that I want to be part of that. It was a conversation between Ivan Pațakin, the famous Romanian sportsman that was witnessing, because he was part of the Romanian delegation, and the survivor of that delegation, which was an Israeli Romanian-born sportsman, that he was basically the guy that was carrying the flag of the Israeli delegation in 1972, when the Israelis sent for the first time a sport team on the German soil for a sport competition. And very few people know that the Israeli flag was carried by a Romanian Jew.
No, I didn't know
Wow.
that.
Yes.
I didn't
And
know
the
that.
guy was there
Fascinating.
together with Pațakin. And when you are, I don't know if you feel the emotion, but when that moment I said, what is going on here?
Yeah.
And I approached a guy who looked to me like being the organizer. And I said, "Do you need any?" He didn't know who I am. He didn't know if I can if I can have some resources, what would be the value that I can bring into his. But the guy was a plus minus alone, I would say. And this is Mihai, my partner today. And when we started, when I started, he was already on the 4th edition. Now we are going to have 11th edition this summer. We didn't have a plan. We didn't know how the things are going to evolve. But now it's we transform it into the storytelling. Firstly, is storytelling and movie festival, because we are bringing there people to speak with the kids. Well, when I say kids, imagine that we're having kids from 17, 18 years old up to 27, 28, plus the large audience. I mean, the larger audience, everybody can come and see what's going on there. And this was transformed due to the quality of the people that I managed to bring there. It is called the Romanian version of Davos. Because when you're having US ambassador, Israeli ambassador, German ambassador, French ambassador, the Romanian chief of staff, the Romanian army chief of staff, representatives from the Romanian intelligence service, all the rectors of the most important universities in the country, CEOs of the most important banks, and so on and so forth. People coming, analysts coming from 10, 12 countries, The Economist, Financial Times, and so on and so forth. You realize that something wrong is going on there. Yeah? So, and plus the 45 movies that we're having, all the themes that we are discussing are linked with the movies. I mean, the movies are always linked to what we are speaking about there. 25 concerts, the wine, and all the things, the jazz that you're having in the middle of the night in the Saxon citadel of Rizhno. It is a movement because it's a puzzle of all of these things. And why are we doing this? Because some people, I got this question, why are you doing it? Don't you have enough to do with your life? And I have to admit, yes, I have.
No, you don't anymore, because now your daughter's boyfriend took over the cooking.
The cooking part, no,
So
because
you're
when
free,
you are having
basically.
a party, as I was having last year, because it is an accident. The people might think otherwise, but it's not. The festival in the last couple of years, it's ending with my birthday party. So when you are having a birthday party in Rizhno with 400 people, it's complicated to have somebody cooking for them. Therefore, we have
Yes.
to organize the catering.
Logistics. Yeah.
Why are we doing this? It's exactly for the conversation that we had 10, 15 minutes ago. It's that the kids should know. It's a must. It's not optional. Because they have to understand from the most qualified voices what's going on in the world, how the history was here or elsewhere, why that thing happened. We're having, Abby, for instance, we're having this year, I think will be the third session of fake news training with the kids. Last year, you would be surprised, which was maybe the most successful training for the kids, the constitutionality one.
Really?
Can you imagine that, for instance, after 2 weeks or 3 weeks, my son and his girlfriend, they were on the seaside, and after 2 weeks or 3 weeks from the festival, they went on the seaside, and what they were reading on the beach, Romanian Constitution. I mean, I'm not showing off. It's absolutely true.
Impressive. Yeah.
These are the things that are happening there, plus the fun, plus the quality of the people that we are having there. And I think that the only merit that we might have, other than bringing the right people there, is that we put the right pieces of puzzles knowledge, knowledge, information, fun, the vibe of the place. And I think that this is the only thing that we did
And that
properly
encourages
to put the right set of the ingredients on the table.
You know, I have an idea because there are so many Romanians who have children my daughter's age, let's say around the age of 10 up until 18, let's say, living in the United States, who anyway come and visit Romania every summer, or almost every summer. And they do it for, obviously, personal reasons. They want for the children to see the grandparents or other relatives. Very few of them come with a, targeted plan where I want to expose my children to, the biggest values, cultural values, educational values in Romania. But in the United States, I was living in a town in New Jersey where there was, I had a friend who was Polish, and Poland apparently every year organizes a big camp for the children from the diaspora, from the Polish diaspora.
So does Estonia.
Yes, and every year hundreds of children come from the Polish diasporas, and they're being taken around Poland for about a month, immersed in the Polish culture, taken to the most important cultural events, and they go back having understood some part of the Polish history and feeling Polish. You know what I'm saying?
Maintaining that connection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can't we do something like that? Maybe for the Romanians who are living right now in the United States, whose children are American, by the way. I mean, they're also American. Because I would see, even if we would have 150 children between the ages of 18 and 28, let's say, who are coming from the United States, and they're coming to your festival.
We are doing this only, we didn't, and we have to say to the people that are watching us, we didn't plan this conversation.
No plan.
So we are doing this year. So
Okay,
we are doing this year. So what we are doing this year, I made some alliances, let's call it alliances, where I was speaking with at least two organizations. And one is the Liga Studenților Români din Străinătate, so the students that they were studying abroad, plus the, I understood that there is, I don't know if it is an organizational umbrella, but we are speaking the equivalent of the Republic of Moldova students that studied abroad. So both organizations this year, they are going to be in Rizhnov. On the top of the 100 kids that we are going to sponsor and keep them there on the summer school. So I was speaking with both organizations that the Romanian, Moldovan students that they used to live, some of them are now after they graduate and they are living abroad, but they are going to be there in the audience.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we have to expose those young Romanians who are living, and maybe they were brought up abroad, to the values of Romania now, not the ones in the past.
Well, and so that it talks about building the future, as you said. And I think having the sessions that you're talking about fake news and really educated consumption of information is also really important for youth in both of our countries. And we're doing some of that this year as well. We call it media literacy, and this idea that there's so much information out there. How do you really figure out what is accurate, and how do you check it, and how do you verify? And some of that also goes back to what we were talking about the era of communism in the 80s and propaganda. That value of being able to look at what information you're getting with a critical eye is really important. That sounds really interesting.
Let's make a joint venture. So you are very welcome to have a session this year at the festival.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We'd like that. I'll talk to my team about that.
By the way, U.S. Embassy, and we all three of us, but worth to be mentioned here, U.S. Embassy was having a presence for at least last 4 or 5 editions. We either had the deputy chief of mission or the ambassador in all the last 4 to 5 editions, and I'm sure that is going to be the same this year.
Sorin, since we are live, I can come, right?
Yes.
Now you have proof.
This is the proof. Perfect.
Yeah, that would be really fun.
By the way, speaking about diaspora, one of the things that we also want in the program of this year, we want to underline is through the people that we are going to bring from diaspora, other than the students, other than the kids. We really would like to understand how we can rebuild the connection with the Romanian diaspora. And therefore, I already spoke with that they are going to have lecturers in Reznov with 3 Romanian professors in Paris, 1 banker in London, 1 Roma professor in the Columbia University, Cristina Grigore, that she's managing a Roma study group in Columbia University. So we are going to import, if I can call it import, we are going to have there lots of Romanians that are working and living abroad in order to try to bring as much as we can, to bring back home as much as we can from their experience, knowledge, and to try to connect ourselves more with those guys living abroad.
It's generally the U.S. Embassy in Romania has not had such a difficult job reaching through to young people culturally, because in Romania we have been so open to everything coming, from across the pond. And my generation, we grew up watching Beverly Hills, for example, Melrose Place. That was the generation that I was a part of.
Well, you missed Dallas.
I did not miss it.
No, you missed Dallas.
I did not miss it.
Who
I was
killed
watching
JR?
it.
Who killed JR?
That was one of those events that we don't have anymore in culture, because now we can all watch it separately.
Yes.
But when there was a show that was only on a certain time per week, there was some statistic about something like 30% of Americans watched that Who Shot JR.
Oh my God.
That's incredible. So Dallas, fun memories.
But it is of great value that my generation and even the younger generations have been so open to everything coming culturally wise from the United States. And that means that we are also mentally open to the economic values, the political values that are coming from there. Democracy, capitalism, it's something that we identify with. And all we're missing, the younger generation, is to be more actively civically responsible. Because what I'm observing is a disengagement from doing something about it. So a lot of people are understanding it. I'm talking about people who are, let's say, in their 20s right now. They understand why it's important, why democracy is important, why capitalism is important. But if we have to fight for it right now, if we have to be proactive about it, maybe it's the lack of engagement that I see. And that is something that in the United States has been pervasive throughout history. There's a lot of civic engagement right away. In small communities, in large communities, people right away come out when they feel something is wrong. They come out and they speak their mind. Sorin, where is that coming from in the young generation? We want to say something, but we're just, we're not going to get too involved.
Well, I think that, and I'm always, I'm trying to make the comparison when I was at their age in the early 90s. I was 20. I was 20 when the revolution happened, and I remember that on the kids, the students, the teenagers have been the ones that they were basically the drivers of those movements then. And after that, Piața Universității phenomenon and so on and so forth. Yes, there is a big difference between my generation at that time and the current generation. I'm sure that there are sociologists on the market that they can explain this. It's definitely Romania developed tremendously in these 30 years. It's a completely different fabric, social fabric, if I can say so, on the Romanian society. Social media. You are rather activist on the social media rather than being on the streets. It's completely different mindset.
The modes have changed.
So I would say that from the rational and intellectual point of view, we are seeing quite a vibrant society through the social media, and we can see how active the Romanian society is in expressing its view, including the young generation. On the other side, if you are going to see how this is transforming into a political movement or a social movement itself, I think that disbelief in the traditional political system in Romania in the last 25, 30 years, it's paying it's the tribute that we have to pay to this disbelief, if I can say so. But it's a different way of expressing your view. The young generation is expressing the view in very when I was student and I was in for I don't know how many dozens of days on a row in Piazza Universității, and my entire, my older colleagues and my generation was there. This was our way of expressing our political views or social views or whatever. We didn't have Facebook, we didn't have Twitter, we didn't have anything. Now you can express this differently. And we have to take it. We have to understand this doesn't mean that the society is less vibrant, less involved. It's very much different. Some people might not like this. They might think that this is going to give a less efficiency in changing the societies in the process. We don't know. I mean, we are having studies and sociologists that can come with an answer to this. But it's a different mindset and different technical means and tools to express yourself these days.
Yeah. Oh, you're right. That things are changing. When you were talking about sitting out in the piazza with your colleagues, I was a teenager when communism was ending, but I was also raised by two parents who were hippies through the 60s, and I spent many of my weekends as a kid going to demonstrations. It's okay, they already know about it for my security clearance, it's fine, but that's what we would do, right? Is we go make our voice heard from everything from U.S. policy in Nicaragua to women's health and it was very much, to make change you had to kind of be present at these events. And you're right, there are a lot of other modes to do that. But I was just reading this morning about all around the world, kids walked out of their classrooms yesterday for action on climate change. Elementary school kids through high school kids.
Yeah.
And that was organized through social media. So there are different modes, but I think that interest is still there.
Then probably the real problem is the total disconnect between the young generation and the ones, or the one in Romania who's, currently, let's say, politically leading the country, because there's no empathy between the two. So the younger generation is trying to find ways to express itself separately from what's going on politically. And that's why we don't see any real results. But we said we're not going to be political. It's just that we have this force of social media, and it is a force. And the young people are choosing what interests them. They're choosing which, missions they're going to associate themselves with. And sometimes the more senior people find that those missions are not important or not relevant, but we have to listen to what they're actually pointing towards right now. And I want to ask you, what were you doing, Sorin and Abby, when you were 18? What was going on in your life?
Let's see. Well, when I was 18, I was, a month away from starting college. And at that time, didn't have a clear idea of what I wanted to do with my life, except that I knew that I wanted to travel and learn languages. That was about as concrete as it got. I thought maybe I'd be an interpreter at the UN, or I don't know. And so I was, on my way to university trying to figure out what that might mean.
Where did you go? Because you were born and raised in Maryland?
Yep, Maryland and then Virginia. So I went to Georgetown, and I went to their School of Foreign Service, and sort of through those 4 years, I figured out that, yes, I want to do something international, maybe join the State Department. But I think at 18, I wasn't quite sure where I wanted to go, except that I wanted to be part of the broader world, do something international. So I guess from that sense,
you did.
I did.
Yes,
but I don't think that me at 18 would have thought I'd be doing this, at 40-something.
That's great.
So,
what about you? What were you doing?
Well, nothing. All my plans or my ideas when I was 18 had anything to do with what's going on today, because my 18 was during the Ceausescu's time. So who could have imagined what the life would...
Wait a minute. You were probably training for your acting exam.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
No, I was practicing for getting, the very tough exam that we used to have in those days to get to the university. I was in love. I was listening Radio Free Europe, and this is from where the things are coming into my life.
Which is back again.
Which is back again.
Yeah.
And one of my, let's not say friends, but one of a good acquaintances managing it, Sabina. So, because one of the things that you might not know, that I used to be a journalist 25 years ago as well.
I did not know that.
Okay. So going back to 18. So listening music, I was discovering, I think that I was already post-Beatles. I mean, I'm always saying this crazy stupid joke when I was, for one day, there was very short trips of one day to Rusa in Bulgaria in those days, and we were buying LPs from there, you know, vinyls. And I was in 82 or 83. And I even remember these days that it was a standard price of 33 levas for one LP, and I was looking to two of LPs, which one I'm going to buy. One was an unknown to me at that time band with a very shocking punking type of which was called Queen, and the other one was Maywood. I bet that you'd never heard about Maywood. Guess what? I bought Maywood. So I was trying to educate myself, King Crimson, and I was in Pink Floyd, King Crimson, this type of stuff.
That was the era for sure.
But these were the constants of studying a lot. These were the constants of my 18 years old. A lot. Too much, I would say. Music, Radio Free Europe, and my political education, which I didn't know that it's a political education. I was just trying to be informed in a very grey Ceausescu's Romania. So pretty much this is it.
Before I ask you the next question, I'd like to ask what time it is. 7 minutes. Perfect. You know, I like to think that everybody is an ambassador for Romania. I know that there are people who, when asked to name a few positive things about Romania, they find it hard because of some personal experience they had in their childhood or, you know, their young years, and they weren't able to wear it off. They were just stuck with that negative experience. And if they moved abroad, they can't even look at what's going on now because they have the filter of what happened then. And some parts of the Romanian diaspora have that, are living with that. But perhaps if they hear people who are successful here, people who are not from here, but they're living here and they see the good parts of Romania, maybe if they hear it from you and from you, maybe they will trust that it's so. And maybe, you know, step by step, because it took Israel decades to deal with its own negative migration and negative image. It's not going to happen and it's not going to change in a day, but step by step, drop by drop, maybe this perception about Romania will change. So if you were to promote Romania to some of your American friends living in the United States right now, what would you say about Romania?
Well, first of all, everyone I know who has come to Romania on vacation, for instance, family members or friends, they're surprised in a good way about Romania in terms of the potential here and the business and the places to see and the incredible variety of the country. You know, you have ocean, you have mountains, you have forest. I mean, just incredible both history and just travel possibilities. And I would also say again that like I said at the beginning, Romania is a country that is full of potential and continues to move towards that potential. And the last thing I would say again is that there are also great opportunities and examples for women who've been successful here, like you, Dana, as well.
Thank you so much. Sorin?
Well, first of all, you know, in order to understand what's going on what is good happening to Romania, you have to come to Rizhnov, because I think that there it's a bit of quintessence of what is good in Romania. But, you know, there are so many things going on here. It's the vibrant society that we were just speaking about, the civil engagement. By the way, speaking about Bucharest, you know, my daughter used to live for a number of years in UK and so on and so forth, and of course that she's a very cultural person as well. I mean, I don't know if we are doing enough in order to let other people know how vibrant culturally Bucharest is. Yeah. I'm speaking about Bucharest because I know Bucharest more, but best. But you know, we can speak about Cluj and so on and so forth. We can speak about Transylvania and so on. it's one of the most vibrant cities that I know in this respect, and especially when it comes to underground, artistic movements, either way, speaking theater, music, exhibitions, and so on and so forth. Very sophisticated city as well. From the business perspective, all the people are saying that it's great that Romania has to catch up. It's just great because this is giving you the opportunities of, quantum leap. In order to pass over a couple of intermediary stages that you have for US or Western Europe. They already had to pass through. Therefore, you can just jump directly to them. Yeah. So I think that Romania, from this perspective, it's passing, despite of the image or the debates in the social media or worldwide. I think that Romania is passing through a decisive, positive transformation these days. And I think that, again, we are speaking about business involvement of the people that they already started to have sophisticated and consolidated businesses. Either we are speaking about the new kids that they are coming with their startups, or we are going to end up with a cultural life and so on and so forth. It's so diverse, and the problem is not that it's not diverse or positive, is how are we going to be able to transmit this complexity to the world or to the diaspora? I think that here it's rather the question than how we can improve or develop or increase the diversity.
We can share what's already here.
Yes.
I have to share that next week I'm going to be meeting 15 of my classroom of, I think, 28 elementary school classmates.
Wow.
I haven't seen most of them in 25 years. We suddenly connected through WhatsApp a few days ago. And out of the blue, it happens that 15 of us can meet next week on March 21st, which is extraordinary in itself. And I realized, just catching up with these people I haven't been in contact with for over 2 decades, that it was in elementary school, our teachers in elementary school have given us the foundation of really how we converse, how we have conversations, and how we think critically. And of course, it comes from our families as well. But profesora de literatură or, Romanian language and the English teacher and the history teacher, they have played such a huge role in our lives back then, before we turned 14, that I'm just now realizing it. Of course, psychologically, you know it. Have you had, of course you had, models like that, role models in elementary school who taught you how to relate to people, how to express yourself, how to start a conversation, what to talk about? Because something that is coming from that age, it's from that time, the communist times as well, but it went past that time as well, is having profound conversations about literature and poetry. These two things have truly been the foundation of who I am today. And it started in that era with my professors, my teachers. What about your life?
So my mother used to be a literature professor, so I'm going to exclude her because it's natural.
That's a whole,
Secondly, it was my father, my late father, that he was deported in the communist times. So he was having his own history, and this is maybe from where my interest towards communism and values and so on, it was coming from his own personal experience. But going to the professors, and I might reach her because she's my English teacher in the high school. She was the driver behind of the theater thing and acting and Shakespeare, and in the communist times being such an outspoken, different iconoclast, is this English term? Professor in those times, believe me, this was a life-changing experience.
Yeah.
And I want to say her name. I don't know because she's on the Facebook. We are connected. Her name is Mîndruțescu. I don't know, and it's not important how old is she, but she's very active on the Facebook, and I want to thank her.
Well, we thank her for you. What about you?
So when you talked about teachers in elementary school who had an effect I was thinking of my 6th grade teacher, Mrs. Ilgner, because she didn't treat us like kids. We read books that were probably far beyond what most 6th graders would read. We read George Orwell. It was 1984, so we read 1984. We read Animal Farm. We read The Little Prince, but we didn't just read it. We also were forced to be critical, to be critical thinkers.
Yeah.
What I remember was that at least once a week I would be scared to death in her class because she pushed us to do something that was really new. But she pushed us to learn, and she was a great inspiration. So I really honor everyone who's part of teaching kids, whether through the film festivals, through outreach, through charities, through universities, because what you do, there's a saying from Garrison Keillor, nothing you do for a child is wasted. And it's true. And the 3 of us are examples of that. We remember exactly what people did for us.
That's right. And the reality is, and why I think through conversations we can change everything, the reality is that those conversations are a skill we learn, and we learn it in elementary school through reading and discussing and debating. And we don't talk about it enough, about how those people are creating the next generation of thinkers. And it happens there. Thank you so much for coming today. Are we done? Or yes? Okay.
Thank you,
Abby, and thank you, Sorin. So I will see you in Râșnov. Sorry, how many people can I bring?
All right.
That's wonderful.
Calendar
and
mark.
Hopefully I'm going to see you there as well.
Yes, I would love that.
Okay, well, have a wonderful Saturday, and I'll see everybody. I don't know exactly the next edition, the date for the next edition, but I'll see you on Coffee and Stories. And for all of you who will be watching from abroad, if you would like to discuss or hear that I discuss certain topics, please let me know through my Facebook page. And if you would like to send comments to the participants in the Coffee and Stories editions, also you can contact me. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you.